Hey everyone, Steve Rosenbaum here from the NYC Media Lab with data download as we experiment with a live broadcast. If you want to jump into the conversation, join the comments. I'll see if I can juggle all those things. Was the idea that we could share it via a live stream. So let's just jump in. This particular newsletter I think is pretty fantastic. By the way, if you don't get it emailed to you, I'm going to just pop up a banner right here. That's the way to get it emailed to you in case you would rather read it rather than have it told to you. I want to start with just a little bit of a story about Facebook. So, you know, we're all in our homes. Maybe now we're going out a little bit, depending on where we live in the country. Facebook has, for me, been continuing over the last couple of weeks to pop up these flashbacks. Pictures from last year, the year before, family trips, outings, selfies with friends. Some days it's charming. Other days it's a little hard to take. And for two reasons. One, obviously, because we're not having, you know, that summer. I'm already desperately missing Central Park Summer Stage and Lincoln Center Out of Doors. Two wonderful music memories for me that we're not going to have this summer. But also, it's a flashback to an earlier time at Facebook, and you know, the Facebook ad boycott is where we start today. It's a big story, and it's getting bigger every day. Initially, it was some smaller brands, some brands with really clear social issue agendas, so maybe it wasn't so surprising. Eddie Bauer, Magnolia Pictures, Ben & Jerry's. But in recent days, and Patagonia was in there too, but in recent days it's gotten bigger. Hershey's, Coca-Cola, Verizon, these are big advertisers. And the decision that they're making to essentially say to Facebook, and to some extent all of the social media platforms, you know, we're not going to support hate and racism and misinformation. You got to fix it, and you got to fix it now, is powerful, because at the end of the day, you know, we don't pay for Facebook, we don't pay for Twitter. You know by now the analogy. I mean, we're the product, right? So what they're selling to those advertisers is us. And, you know, I just think back to an earlier time when Facebook was really about building community and seeing friends and neighbors and learning about people having babies or puppies or, you know, going on trips. And I'd be perfectly fine with dialing down the volume of hate speech and misinformation, dialing it out, which is going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. Now, here's a little bit of cynicism. I've read a couple of people who say, yeah, well, you know, ad budgets are down, you know, marketers have to cut budgets anyway. So this is kind of an easy way to send a shot across the bow, save some money, and get some good PR out of it. You can decide how you feel about that. Interested in people's thoughts about the ad boycott on social media and whether or not you think it's going to have an impact. So hop into the comments if you have something to say about that. All right, so moving on. So that's the first big story in the newsletter this week. Worth a read, and hope you find it interesting. Next, one of the things you'll see in the newsletter every week is we try and not just do the news of the day, but look back and look at things. This is a TechCrunch story that's really interesting about GDPR and a review of how GDPR is doing. And the answer is the European Commission takes a fair look at it and says, not bad, but we could do better. And I think that's probably the right answer. You know, it's a start. It's certainly doing okay, but I think, you know, the EU lawmakers say GDPR is working, but at the same time, they also say that it needs more vigorous enforcement. I'm not sure. I mean, it's 2 years, by the way, which is a long time. 2 years, and it certainly had an impact on the U.S. Initially, but I think, and obviously big, multinational websites need to respond to GDPR in the U.S. as well. So let's move on to article number 3. This one, in the moment of Black Lives Matter, is pretty important. This is a Fast Company article about racial discrimination on Airbnb, and there's a 1993 New Yorker cartoon which famously says, "On the internet, no one knows if you're a dog." But the subtext of that is, at Airbnb, there are ways that they're able to determine ethnicity, and it's created internal bias that's significant. So I'd encourage you to read this article. Part of what I think we're all thinking about to some extent is how the Black Lives Matter movement can shift from street protests to actions in terms of our boards of directors, in terms of inclusion at companies, and include, certainly in this case, algorithmic racism, which is a serious thing. Next article, and by the way, all of these links are in the newsletter. If you're not a subscriber, encourage you to subscribe. Digiday has an interesting article about how publishers are dealing with digital events. We're all here, we're all watching things live, we're all zoomed out to some extent. The problem for all of these live quote free events is that they don't really generate any revenue or value for publishers. And it turns out that one of the things that publishers are getting from digital events is audience data. Great article, thoughtful, well-written. Lucinda Southern's article. Encourage you to click on it in the newsletter and put your comments in either on the website or respond to us at NYC Media Lab on Twitter or all of our various places you can find us. Next up, I know we did an Andrew Yang thing last week, and some of you are going to think that I'm hitting Andrew Yang really hard, but I got to tell you, he's just doing interesting stuff. And, depending on how the election goes in November, it's interesting to think about where Andrew Yang could be in the future administration. And he's a super smart guy. I was a fan of his when he was running, not because I thought he was going to be the candidate, but because I liked the issues that he brought to the fore. And so now he's talking about big tech paying for user data. This gets back to the whole, if you're not paying for the product, you're the product. I like the idea that my data is valuable, and I like the idea that I control it, and I like what he's promoting here. So play with this. Again, comments, interesting thoughts. Next, a YouTube video from Bloomberg that we think is really interesting. Essentially, the question is, can big tech carry the stock market to an economic recovery? And I'm not going to lie, I just like saying the FANG sites because I just think it's kind of a lovely acronym. That being said, this is a short video. It's a minute long, worth a view, and worth a conversation about the fact that even as the stock market is bumping along and COVID is terribly serious and getting more serious every day. By the way, I don't have it on because I'm in my home, but I always have right nearby a mask here. Should I wear it I could wear it for the whole podcast. I'm not going to, but I could. So this is an interesting video that we pulled into the newsletter for this week. Next up, again, another live event that I'm missing terribly is our friends at Future of Storytelling, FOST, and the FOST podcast. This week, the one that we recommended in the newsletter, just out this week, is with our friend Karen Palmer, who's an amazing AR, VR artist and thinker. And Charlie Melcher is the host. A great conversation, vibrant and interesting, and not grim. So trying to work to make sure the newsletter takes you to some interesting places and keeps your spirits up with interesting conversations that aren't necessarily the endless barrage of breaking news. And then at the end, just because we don't necessarily want to endlessly bang on Facebook, there's this choreography AI that's kind of cool. Although, as I say that, maybe cool is not where Facebook is what people are thinking about Facebook today. All right, so with that, that's the newsletter this week. Lots of interesting stuff to read. Please share, sign up, share it with your friends. Here's the easy sign up here. Let me just put it back up. So it's nycmedialab.org/newsletter. And all we want is your name and an email address, company, and we will send you the newsletter every week. And hopefully you'll enjoy it. So last but not least, I want to just put a plug in for what's happening starting at the Media Lab this coming week. We have partnered with our friends at Bloomberg to do the 4th edition of the NYC Machines Plus Media Conference. For those of you who came in previous years, we've done it at Bloomberg. It's been a great conversation, vibrant and interesting. And as we came up upon the May of this year, we had this hard decision we had to make, which was, what are we going to do about the Machines Plus Media Conference here? Let me just pull up the, while we're here, because I can do this. This is nycmedialab.org. Come on. Let's go to upcoming events. And here's Machines Plus Media. Okay. So it's a 5-episode series. It is chock full of interesting conversations and interesting people. It will drop Tuesdays at 11 a.m. and stream live. Next week is our first. And it is moderated by our friend Chris Collins, who's the senior executive editor at Bloomberg, and has 3 terrific guests: Charlie Bennett, Noel Silver, and Vivian Schiller. And it is really about AI and emerging trends in media and technology. But they cover the gamut of things that are going on today, and they're super smart. And the conversation is frothy and exciting. And that's episode 1. And then we move forward. Episode 2 is state-of-the-art machine-driven media, which I am moderating. Episode 3, our partner and friend, Erica Matsumoto, is moderating a panel about tech ethics, diversity, bias, and inequality. Then we're bringing, for episode 4, Luc Dubois from IBM is going to show some really cool new tech and emerging platforms. And then episode 5 is Disinformation Industrial Complex. And that's moderated by Sarah Kopit, who is also from Bloomberg. So if you haven't signed up, it's super easy. It's free. We'll send you reminders. You don't have to come. There's also a LinkedIn closed group for registered attendees so that you can communicate with your friends and build a network. And we really we hope that our challenge as a Media Lab, frankly, is to take this moment in time when we can't be physically present in a room, which is always amazing, and bring some of the quality programming and energy that we bring to those rooms to a virtual space. So Machines Plus Media should be exciting. By the way, Jeff Pulver has joined. Hey, Jeff. Hey, glad you're here. Nice to see you. When is the next 140 conference? And will it be online or will it be back in a room? Probably not for a bit. With that, I'm going to wrap this up. Hope you've signed up for the newsletter. If you have, then you can participate online next week with us. And we'll try and do this around 10:30 every Saturday, right when the newsletter comes out. So with that, here we go. I'm going to jump back over here. How do I do that? There we go. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.